Hi class, what we're going to do today is I'm going to show you how to factor a trinomial by a method called decomposition. Here we've got a standard trinomial set up in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c, where a value is 4, your b value is 5, and your c value is -6. Whenever you have a trinomial in this form, one of the first things you should always do when you're asked to factor it is to see if there's any common factors between what is in the trinomial. And in this case, there just doesn't happen to be one. We've got 4, 5, and 6, and there's no common factors between all three. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a method that works very well when you've got a values greater than 1. So our first step to begin factoring this is sort of an aside, and what we want to do is we want to take the a value and the c value, so in this case a 4 and a -6, we want to multiply them together. So we go 4 times -6 and we get -24. And we're going to use this -24 and we're going to go through something that I like to call the plus times method. So what we're going to do is we're going to look for two factors of -24 that when I multiply them I get -24, and when I sum or add the values I get the b value, or the +5. So just to say that again, I take the 4 and the -6, I multiply them, and I'm looking for two factors that come out to the same answer of -24, but when I add those same two numbers I get +5. So I can start going through my factors of -24, and I will eventually find out that -3 times +8 multiplies to -24, but when I add -3 and +8, I get +5. That sort of tells us that we are going to use these two numbers to decompose or break apart this trinomial into something that is easier to factor. And what we're going to decompose is this middle term, or b term. So what we end up having is 4x squared and -6. Those come down, they do not change. I take the 5x that's in the middle and I'm going to break that into 8x and -3x. So now I have a 4-term polynomial of 4x squared plus 8x minus 3x -6. Now I can see that what I'm going to be able to do is take this pair of terms, 4x squared and 8x, so 4x squared and 8x, and the -3x and the -6, and I'm going to factor out a common factor out of each of these. So I'll start with 4x squared plus 8x. And from that, I can see that both terms are divisible by 4x, or they have the common factor of 4x. So I divide or factor 4x out of 4x squared, and that's going to leave me with x. I do the same thing with the 8x. I factor the 4x out, or divide it out, and that leaves me with 2. So the factors of these two end up being 4x and x plus 2. I come over here and I treat this almost like it's a completely separate part of the question. I have -3x and -6, and I want to factor a common factor out of these. So what is common between -3 and -6? Well, negative sign is common to both, so negative, and both are divisible by 3. So I'm going to factor out of these a -3. So I go back up and I divide or factor out -3 from 3x, and I get x. I do the same thing with the -6, and I get +2. 6 divided by 3 is 2, and negative divided by a negative gives me a positive. All right, here I can see that both things that I have in brackets after factoring out the terms are the same. That is really important to factoring by this decomposition. That's sort of what I want. I want to have this and this match. That is going to be one of my factors, or of the two binomials that I'll create out of this trinomial. My other factor comes from 4x and -3. So the two common factors that I pulled out become the other half, or the other factor of this polynomial, or the two binomials I create. So I end up with 4x minus 3 times x plus 2. You could also write this as x plus 2 times 4x minus 3. Just make sure that you have brackets around both. We would then check by multiplying these back together. You can do the multiplication out yourselves, and you will see that when you multiply 4x minus 3 and x plus 2, you end up with 4x squared plus 5x minus 6. It's a bit of a difficult concept. We're going to spend some time on it Monday and Tuesday in class going over this again, but hopefully this helps.